Hello, in this video I'll give a quick overview of Assignment 1, which is a Toposcope app. This app uses sensor APIs on the device to determine the user's location and heading. The APIs are geolocation and device orientation. It keeps a list of locations of interest, and for each of these it knows the latitude and longitude. It then has a live information display that shows the directions to and relative distances to each of these locations of interest, and also a list down the bottom with each of the exact distances from the user's current location. And you can see it has a live compass view up the top, and as the user rotates their device so that they face in a different direction, it updates this display and shows at the moment they're facing northeast. So I'm going to have a quick look at the materials that we provide you for this assignment. So if you scroll down to the Assignment 1 block on Moodle, the first link you're going to have is to the Assignment 1 instructions. If you click this, you're going to see some background that discusses what it means to read the compass and what it means to have different headings, and how you can compute relative bearings, which is about the location of, or the heading that you need to travel in to get from one location to another. It talks about what you're provided with, which we'll have a quick look at in a second. We provide you with a skeleton app, so you don't have to display the interface. That's things we haven't yet covered in the unit. So we provide the basic compass view, and we provide the list at the bottom, and you just need to call some functions to populate this with the information you want to display. We talk about how to get started with the app, which is to download the assignment skeleton, and you make all your changes in a file called toposcope.js, so there's just one file in the skeleton that you need to modify. And we talk about the steps to work through to do all the tasks for the assignment. First is creating a list of locations. So we had some example locations, the capital cities in Australia. You can put in some locations that you want. You can choose some and just put them in yourself. And we talk about getting the user's location using the GPS sensor. We talk about getting the heading using the orientation, which is effectively the compass and gyroscope sensors on the device. We then talk about a kind of fallback method of how you can get the heading using just GPS coordinates. If the device doesn't have a compass, then you can look at the user's last location. Let's say they're walking, and their current location, and compute a heading from that. We discuss the need to calculate bearings to each of the locations of interest, how you generate the different length spikes in the compass to show the relative distance of each of the destinations, and we give an example of what the final completed app might look like. There's also various resources that give you information on things like computing the distance and bearing between GPS locations, and the different sensor APIs that you need to make use of for the assignment. The instructions also talk about how to test the app on the phone, which requires using an uploader website that we've created. The instructions also talk about the presentation task, so there's a team presentation that's associated with this assignment and is itself worth 3%. And we have some information about the submission. Okay, so let's head back to Moodle. The next thing you're going to see here is the assignment skeleton. So I'm going to take a quick look at this. Let's just save it here. I'm going to unzip this. And I'm going to jump into brackets, and I'm going to open the folder that was unzipped here. So I'll choose open folder, and let's go to assignment 1 here, and I'll choose the skeleton directory, and I'll just open this entire directory. So you're going to see a few things here. Firstly, the app has an icon, and it behaves like a web app, so you can save the app to your home screen. There's a CSS file that has some CSS. You don't need to worry about this. It has an index file, which is the kind of structure of the page. Again, you don't need to modify or worry about this. Then there's two JavaScript files. The first is Toposcope view.js, and this contains several useful functions that we've created that you can call to do various tasks. So let's have a look at that file. First off, it has a couple of methods for the JavaScript number object that you can use to take a number that's in degrees and convert it to radians, or vice versa. It has a function called display message, and display message you give a string and optionally some timeout, and it will display a little pop-up toast message at the bottom. We can have a quick look at that when we just have a look at the uploader in a moment or two. We have a convenience function called distinguishable color that you pass just a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, and each number you give it will return a different HTML color, and these colors are specifically chosen to be of maximum contrast. Again, you don't need to understand how each of these functions work, just that you can use them. We provide a function called update location list, and this takes as its argument an array that has a special format. So it says here, this function replaces the contents of the location list. That's that list we saw at the bottom of the screen. Its argument, list cell contents, must be an array of objects, with each object containing 3 properties. It needs to contain a property called label, which is just a string. In our example, that's something like Brisbane. The label color, which is the color I want to display that label, which is just one of those HTML colors we just talked about a moment ago. And a detail label, which is the small text shown underneath Darwin that we use to display the distance to that location. So if you pass it an array with these objects, it will update the contents of that list at the bottom of the screen. We also provide 3 functions that can be used for drawing the compass. The first one is already called in the skeleton code that we give you. It just draws the outline of the compass, which is basically just a circle with a grey background. There's 2 further functions, one for drawing a line, or what we call a needle, on the compass. And you need to specify a few different things. For this, you specify the angle that you want the line displayed at in degrees, with 0 being straight up and 90 degrees being pointing to the right, what you'd call 3 o'clock. You specify start positions, which are positions from the center of the circle out to the radius. So 0 is the center, and if you were to specify the radius value for the compass, then you'd get a line that was drawn from the center out to the edge. So that's what start pos and end pos both are. You can specify a width, and you can specify a color, again one of these HTML colors. The final one of these convenience drawing functions is draw letter, and a bit similar to the draw needle function. This one you specify the radius of the circle, you specify an angle that you want that letter shown at, and you specify a letter, which is just a string, and it places that letter out near the edge. So this is useful for displaying your cardinal compass directions: north, east, south, and west. There's one final function in here, but you won't need to call it, and you don't need to worry what it does. It's not important. So they're sort of the functions that we provide you that you make use of. If you want to do some of these things yourself, rather than using these functions, you're quite welcome to, but it's completely fine to just make calls to these functions in your solution. So the other file is toposcope.js, and this is the file that you need to modify. This is where your solution goes. So the instructions talk about creating an array containing the locations of interest. At the moment this is just initialized to an empty array, so that's something you need to fill in. We've created an initial update display function. So the idea is this is the function that would get called anytime the information that's displayed on the screen would change. So for example, if the user's location changes or their heading changes, then you would call this function and it would update both the compass display and also the list of locations. So the list of locations at the bottom of the screen is updated by this function down here, and the idea is this code above is what updates the compass. So there's some initial code here that first just clears the canvas, which is where the compass is displayed, and there's a call to that draw compass face. So if we run this initial version of the skeleton, you're basically just going to see the compass face drawn but nothing shown on it. And if we go and have a look down here, this update location distances demonstrates the use of that update location list function that is part of the code we provide that updates the list. And if you recall, this takes an array of objects where each object has a label property, a label color, and a detail label. So there's just some dummy values in here, an entry for Flinders Street Station in the Melbourne CBD, and we have two colors for these, which are chosen using calls to this distinguishable color function, and they've just got some extra information shown in the detailed label. Let's now have a look at the assignment uploader. So if you want to test your code on the device, it needs to be on a web server. So how do you get your assignment code onto the web server? You use this website. It's similar to the playground in that it has a page where you can type code in and it can publish the code just like the playground can, but it understands that it's publishing the code as part of the assignment. It puts it in a secure location that's only accessible to you and your teammates, and it includes the other files that are part of the assignment skeleton here. So let's have a look at that and click the link on Moodle. We get to a page that looks like this. You can see that it's got a tab here for JavaScript Toposcope app. This is the file you're expected to change. We said basically this just draws the compass and it's going to draw a dummy list with 2 entries. So first step here is if I want to publish this to the web, I click the upload button up here. When I do so, it lets me know that it's uploaded my one file plus the following files from the skeleton were added. And it gives me the address. And in this case, I can click on this. If anyone else tries to visit this address, it will ask them to authenticate. I'm just going to display this app in a kind of iPhone size. This is what it looks like. We have the compass display up the top, and we have Flinders Street Station and Melbourne CBD here. Okay, so I thought I might just demonstrate calls to a couple of the functions in the skeleton here. So let's go back and just have a look at this Toposcope view.js. The first is the display message, which displays a toast message at the bottom of the screen. So let's just have a little look at that. So we're just going to make a call to this display message function. I'm going to do this after a couple of seconds so you can see it appear just after the app is loaded. So I'm going to say set timeout. I'm going to just write an anonymous function here. And I'm going to say display message already. And I'm going to publish this code. I can now go back to my page here and reload it. And after a couple of seconds, I should see a toast message, and it displays for a couple of seconds and disappears. So that's a demonstration of what a toast message looks like. It's useful for displaying notifications to the user. Now let's call one of the other functions associated with the compass drawing. So let's choose this draw needle function. You can have a look at the list of parameters here. So I'm just going to copy this and go back to the uploader, and I've got my code here that draws the initial compass face, so anything that I add to the drawing needs to come after that. So I need to specify the context, so that's the first argument. I need to specify an angle in degrees, so let's draw something at 60 degrees. I'm going to specify a start position, which is the center of the circle, which if we look over here is 0. So that's 0. I have a variable here, radius, that is the radius of my compass. So if I was to specify radius here, this would draw a line right out to the edge. So let's do that. I'm going to specify a width here. Let's try 10. And I'm going to specify a color here. Now this color I could get from the distinguishable color function, or I could just specify an HTML value like red. Let's take this color. And I will upload this, and again I will go back and reload my app here, and you're going to see this is the color that matches Flinders Street Station. You can see it's drawn at 60 degrees on the compass. Okay, so that's a demonstration of the assignment skeleton, and sort of a demonstration of how you can start out on the assignment. I'm going to jump here back to Moodle and show you one final thing. There will be some frequently asked questions. As they come in, we'll keep this page updated. You can also find some information here on coding standards, so how to write code and document it, and the kind of practices you should follow there. You can find also rubrics for how we mark your presentation and how we mark the code. So for example, if I click on this, you can see a breakdown that describes for the application all of the functionality that's required by the instructions, and how we'll mark you on this, and the same for the code quality and documentation of the code. So please do have a look at that. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy working on this assignment.